Kojo. This is the 3inMidfield podcast. And as you know, we like to do some interviews for you guys. We've spoken to some great guys in the game already, and we've got another one lined up for you today. And this is someone that you're not going to forget. This is a great interview. He's a great guy. And let's start the show. Yes, I am indeed your host Kojo for today's show, and I am joined. I'm not gonna keep it long. I'm gonna go straight away into him. He is currently working at FC Serie. He has also worked with Hibernian. He's worked with Pafos, split in Croatia. Am I correct in saying that? Is that that's where they are? Yes, that's where they are exactly. My knowledge is still there. Valerio Zuddas, how you doing, sir?
Hi, Kojo. Hi. First of all, thanks for inviting me and for your availability. We are now in different timeline, but we finally arranged this chat. I'm very pleased to stay here with you to share and speak about football.
Yes, and that's what we love to do, talk about football. And yeah, for those of you listening, there is a bit of a time difference between us, so we've been working hard to get this on schedule, but we've come together and we've got something working. I've purposely taken some time off work, sort of just to get this in here. But let's get started with the show. Valerio, firstly, you know what? I obviously sent you the brief earlier, but I want to talk about you growing up watching football and who your heroes were first, you know, in terms of playing, watching them coach as well. Who are the people that you admired growing up?
Of course. I mean, I'm a big AS Roma fan. So
Okay.
I grew up as a supporter in my city, watching the game, going through stadiums. So at that time in Italy, there was such a big players playing there in Italy. Totti, Maldini, Nesta, Zidane, Del Piero, Cannavaro. I mean, so it was a great time, the 1990s for the Italian league. So yeah, that's the football where I have in my head when I started. So it was every kid, was fascinated about that league at that time.
Yeah, but did you have dreams of becoming a professional footballer? Was that the
all the kids, especially in Italy, had the dream to become a professional footballer? Then I saw that my career was going through professional, semi-professional. So I understood, unfortunately, really early that I couldn't arrive at the top level. So I quitted early, even because of injuries reasons. So I started to really early to coach.
yes, and you are still very young. Which
33.
it's young. It's young.
It's young. Yeah.
It's young, and you've done a lot in your career already. So for those of you that don't know, Valerio is very much multilingual. He speaks many languages. I think 6 languages.
4 fluent, almost 5. The 5th one Croatian, because my wife and my kids. Italian, English, Spanish, and Romanian fluent.
Beautiful. Okay, so he's fluent in 4 languages and almost got the Croatian down as well for 5th. So we'll talk about your career then, because you've been well traveled. The one that stuck out to me was Hibernian, working in Scotland. So I believe you were a part of the Johan Cryuff Institute, where you met Shaun Maloney and many others. But before we go into the Shaun Maloney, Johan Cryuff is a legend of the game. How did they influence your style of coaching as you grew further into the game?
I was following. Of course, Cruyff is a legend, but not just on what he did in the pitch, what he created around, and his different way to think. Then he created many associations, many areas, even outside the football, that can develop you even as a person, not only as a coach or as a football player. So this institute was built really to develop yourself first as a coach and to learn the dynamics, the style of coaching, and really to build you first as a person. So I was following the activities of the institute, and then I started the process to speak with them, because they select even the profiles, and they collect then one group of work and one class to go together to this journey. I remember there was not only of course people that come from sport environments. Mostly you meet people that come from sport environment, but was not just people from football, from different sports, from all different countries, different levels. So that is the growth. That is the main point of the institute. So you share different experience, way to live, way to approach the coaching. That's the biggest part of the journey there.
And yeah, as I said, you met Shaun Maloney. Before we go into Shaun Maloney, was there anyone else that I think maybe the listeners, do you think there's anyone else they would recognize that you worked with?
Oh yeah, I'm still in contact with all the guys there. So Kostis, Yuri, Cyril, Joseph, all the guys that was there. We have a group, of course. We are still in contact, and of course I met Shaun. There was because there is a week every 2-3 months you have to go there in Netherlands. We were hosting in Arnhem, that is close to is a big institute where really close to the Vitesse training center. Is the Johan Cryuff Institute? Is there? Papendal is the name. Is a big complex. We were doing the lesson there. And I met Shaun at the time. I just finished with the Hajduk Split, and he was currently assistant manager of Roberto Martinez in the Belgium national team. Great lad. Immediately we connect, of course. So we enjoyed that period together, and we stayed in contact. And then a few weeks later, not more, he phoned me and said, "Listen, they offered me a job as a manager in Hibernian." And immediately I went. So we started the journey together.
Yes, and at Hajduk Split, you were assistant manager. Your role in Hibernian, was it a technical assistant?
Yeah, was in Hibernian we had was Gary Caldwell was the assistant manager. Gus was with Shaun, and yeah, was alongside them. So particularly I took care of the defensive line. Okay. So I was taking care about after possession and all the defensive line. I was pretty satisfied of my job. Even during the period in charge, we had a great result about this, because we was the second best defense in the league after Celtic, in front of Rangers. It's really hard to compete with those two teams there. Yeah. And I'm satisfied, because even a couple of players there now they went sold. One, George Deutsch, went sold in Verona in Serie A in Italy. Another one, Ryan Portus, was just sold by Hibernian to Watford, and that is owned by the owner from Udinese. So probably we will see even him in Italy now. And for me, I'm proud of this, because I was directly coaching them, so I'm really satisfied. And then Nottingham, we developed a really we worked in a short period of time. We achieved the semi-final cup in the Scottish FA Cup, where we lost in Hampton the derby against Ars. That was the main thing that cost us the job. But there was a really high pressure there in the around the club, and unfortunately we finished the job before. But we are satisfied of the journey together. We recognize, we reflect on our mistake, we recognize where we could improve, and globally was a really great experience.
You mentioned how difficult it is with Celtic and Rangers being the top two in Scotland, and it's been like that for so many years, and it doesn't look like stopping. But as you guys were a coaching team for the players, how do you try to keep them motivated, knowing that, I don't know the ambitions of Hibernian Hearts, I don't know Dunfermline, anyone else in Scotland, but if two teams are always competing for the title, what goals do you set for the players to say, maybe reach third, fourth? How do you keep them motivated?
Of course, as you said, the Celtic and Rangers is a long history. More than 100 years they lead the Scottish League. But there is we tried to reduce this gap first with organization. Of course, at the time we had different resources compared to them to the league, but when you step in the pitch at Ibrox or the Celtic Park, believe me, you don't need too much motivation because they come from themselves. But we tried to do something different when we played in Celtic Park and in Ibrox, trying to play the ball. I think that we was the team that owned most of the time the ball possession in the Celtic Park since a few years, and so we tried to do something different compared to all the other teams that defend in the last 25-30 meters. That, by the way, is one of the way to try to gain some point or to try to reduce the score against these two teams. We try to go there and try to do something different. Then, of course, in our game we lost 2-0 and 2-1, if I don't get wrong. But then we had a really good result at home. We draw 0-0 against Celtic at home. Was of course it was a draw, but was the result of one really long journey of work behind. So we were really satisfied about that. And then, of course, you have to do your best to try to compete with the other teams to try to achieve Europe with other good teams as Hearts, Aberdeen. Now currently is doing really good with Livingston. So it's not an easy league.
No, it's not. Absolutely not. And you've gone into another good league with a good team, FC Sheriff, where you are currently right now. What brought about this move? How were you approached to join the club?
It was really something that I didn't expect, because when I finished with Hibernian, we had a few interviews for all around for job in UK, in MLS, around Europe. Then was nothing concrete. Then I was Christmas time. I knew Roberto. I sent him the wishes from Christmas. Say, how are you? Then we call each other, and he was free. And then we started the conversation because he received this proposal. And then 12 days later, we arrived in Moldova. So it was something unexpected.
My apologies. And the manager, if I've said his name wrong, please forgive me. You can correct me. Roberto Bordin?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah.
He's got quite a pedigree as well. He used to be a former footballer, played for Parma and I think Spezia and other Italian clubs. Did you guys have a connection before you joined his coaching staff, or?
Yeah. I knew him before. This is the first time I worked with him, but I knew him before. Yeah, he has a great background as a player. He also coached here the national team, so his experience. He knows the player, he knows the league. He also was here before in Sheriff, and previously in FC Baku also. So we're working together alongside with Andrea Vezu, the head of performance as well. So we create a good group of work. We are trying to do our best. The target is to win the league and to win the cup, of course, as a minimum for Sheriff, and try to achieve the Champions League group in the next season. Currently, now we are now in Conference League, so we will play 16 February against Partizan,
yes,
Belgrade, and then the second game in 23rd on Belgrade.
Yes, it's actually interesting that you spoke about aiming for the Champions League, because Sheriff had in recent time they've had some very interesting results in Europe, especially namely against Real Madrid.
Everyone mentioned it.
Yeah.
It was a great achievement for the club, because it's really organized club, fantastic facilities, and they want to raise and to become one club that is want to raise his level even in Europe, not only to lead their own league. That was fantastic. Beat Real Madrid in Santiago Bernabeu. I mean, this was a shock result for all the football, but with they had a really good player, really good team at the moment. So I'm not surprised because this club, especially in East Europe, they have a really talented player, and they can now compete against the top 5 league in Europe.
Yes, they can. And you spoke about the facilities and how they're trying to improve and get better. For football players, when they're joining a club, it's always about whether the club they're joining is ambitious, they want to win things, and they want to grow as players, and they want to have great training facilities. Is that just as important for you as a coach, where a club approaches you, but you want to know that you have almost everything that a player also kind of asks for, that you want to feel you step in somewhere, you feel comfortable, you feel ready to work?
Oh, of course. No, the facilities plays a big part even in the in the organization, and even the way how the club present themselves. So, to be fair, in Italy there are of course there are the top club that has amazing facility, but even in first division there are a few clubs that still don't have the facilities for the first league. So sometimes you struggle for logistic reason or for organization, and it's a shame because the level is really high. So when I see that what is even in East Europe, especially because I coached more almost all the time of my career here than in Italy, but it's fantastic. I mean, with the amazing facilities, I think why we cannot reproduce it in Italy as well.
Absolutely. I want to ask about your coaching style. So you spoke about you worked on the defensive line at Hibernian, and namely the fact that you guys had the second best defense behind Celtic, considering Rangers are there as well, is a phenomenal achievement. As a defensive coach, or I don't know if you'll be calling yourself a defensive coach, but would you say your coaching style is passing from the back and building up play? Would it be a long ball game? Because I know football always evolves, and teams play different ways, managers have different styles. What would be the style that you prefer?
But I like the balance. So whatever we do is I'm really focused on the balance. So before we decide our style of playing Hibernian, and so the way to defend as well, we did a specific research of the characteristic of the league, and we figured out that the Scottish Premier League is the first league in Europe for the long ball played. So there is the first league in Europe for long ball play. So the first choice for the player is to kick long ball. This is part of their culture. So long ball, and normally number 9 that can do a header or a playback for the winger that attack the back of the defenders. So if you play man to man in this with this characteristic on the long ball, if you play man to man, potentially there is a chance every long ball. So we decide to play full zonal setting to play with the offside and to organize the line with the specific principle of the zone. But I have to say, if we play full zonal, for example, in a league as Italy or as Spain, where they play mostly between the lines, and you have player that does exactly that movement that runs between the lines, that is the critic part of the zonal setting, you will struggle if you play in the same way. So it's really important to understand where are you going to play, which are the characteristics of the league, and of course of your team, of your defenders, and then you decide and you can modify. Some teams also modify the style of defense each game or during the game. So they pass from zonal to man marking, from man marking in the zonal. That depends, but this is the highest level of defending.
That's interesting, because I didn't think Scottish football would have or would be number 1 for longest long ball.
Long ball played in Europe, number 1.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so you were able to adapt and sort of pick your style around that. That's very impressive. Okay.
Yeah, for example, when I was in Hajduk Split, in Croatia, Hajduk is one of the main club there, alongside Dinamo Zagreb. Most of the team, when they are going to play against Hajduk, both away or at home, they play depending on their 25-30 meters, of course. So the way you can receive one, you can concede one chance to the opponent is counter attack. So you have to take care more on the offensive balance and how to prevent and not concede a counter attack. So that's another detail to take care. But as I said, depends from the league and the team where you are going to coach. So it's not a predefined setting to go valid for everyone.
I like that. I like that. Okay, so we'll come back to Sheriff and club and personal ambition. So you spoke about winning the league, and getting to the Champions League group stages. Of course, I think also the aim would be to beat Partizan and progress in the Conference League. For yourself, your ambitions, and when I ask that question, I mean, does it include? I mean, including with players as well. Is there a target to improve certain players? Maybe the potential for young players, and past this season as well. What are your own goals? Do you one day want to become a manager? Is that something that you want to see in your future?
I think sometimes I still not keen on that, so I need to continue my process, and when in the future will come the opportunity, I will evaluate. But now I just enjoy my process as assistant, and even the competition and the players that I'm coaching. We have really talented players. The policy of the club is to reach this player and then to bring value on the team, and then to sell in a bigger club. As for example, there was Adama Traoré that they sold in Ferencváros, a great player, or many other great players that pass here in Sheriff that can provide visibility in Europe, can develop the player. So this is the main policy of the club. But I mean, for sure from now until the end of the season, we will hear about a couple of talents from here. I'm sure about it.
Absolutely. Okay, well, before we finish up, there's something that we'd like to do with our guests, which is a bit of fun. Now, I didn't put this on the brief because I didn't want you to think about it too much. It's simple. One will be a yes or no. Some of them will just be a name, and we move on. Okay, so it's more of a preference. Who you prefer, what you prefer. So we'll go for the most obvious one: Messi or Ronaldo? Messi. Okay. Carlo Ancelotti or Zinedine Zidane?
Ancelotti.
Jose Mourinho or Pep Guardiola?
It's tough because Mourinho is the manager of my club, but I'm in love with Pep Guardiola.
Are you impressed with what Mourinho's doing at Roma?
Yeah. I think he's the right man for the job. Absolutely.
Awesome. What was the one I was going to pasta or pizza?
Pasta.
Any
too much. Too much. So for now,
any specific type of pasta?
Carbonara or amatriciana. That's the two main one.
Oh, nice. Okay. Manchester United or Liverpool?
Manchester United.
I like that answer. That's my favorite answer. That's good. Arsenal or Chelsea?
Arsenal, all the life.
Arsenal. Is that your favorite English team?
Arsenal fan. Yeah, Arsenal fan.
Then we'll get you one next time for an Arsenal podcast. Absolutely. Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, or Paul Scholes?
That's difficult. Steven Gerrard.
Steven Gerrard. Who would be second?
Paul Scholes.
Frank Lampard third. Okay. Xavi, Iniesta, Modric, or Pirlo?
Xavi. Second one, Iniesta, Pirlo, Modric.
Okay. Casemiro or Sergio Busquets?
Casemiro.
Okay. And The final one is Celtic or Rangers.
Celtic.
So, awesome. Well, Valerio, it's been an honor having you on the show, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Was my pleasure, Kojo.
Before we go, it's up to you. Do you want to share? I don't know, maybe your social media. That'll be your Twitter. If you want to share with the people.
Yeah, of course. If any case someone wants to question or whatever, can contact me. I mean, I don't know. I have just only LinkedIn or Twitter. You just type my name. I don't have Instagram or Facebook, but I am happy to answer to anyone. Absolutely, no problem.
Brilliant, awesome. Of course, this is Kojo 3inMidfield. Again, I'll thank Valerio for joining us. Always remember to like, comment, subscribe. And Valerio will be back with us as well, because now that I know he's an Arsenal fan, Arsenal are close to winning the league. I mean, potentially. They're playing Man City soon. So we'll talk about that game, and I'll definitely get you on for that one as well. So thank you for joining us once again. And yeah, this has been another episode of the 3inMidfield podcast. Can't we say the name properly?